Justin Gaethje has firmly pushed back against recent claims made by Daniel Cormier regarding fighter pay increases tied to the UFC's new broadcast deal with Paramount. Speaking candidly, Gaethje expressed deep frustration with the financial reality fighters continue to face, despite public optimism surrounding the new agreement. Gaethje pointed out that even after earning 14 performance bonuses throughout his UFC career, the total still hasn't reached $1 million, something he believes highlights a major issue within the promotion. According to him, that reality simply isn't right, especially considering the physical risks fighters take every time they step into the octagon. He emphasized that fighters at the top level should be earning significantly more than they currently are. Reflecting on his own career, Gaethje admitted that limited earnings have restricted his ability to make smarter long-term financial decisions. He explained that while fans may assume high-level fighters are financially secure, the truth is far more complicated. The lack of consistent, meaningful pay has made it difficult for him to invest or plan beyond fighting. Addressing Daniel Cormier's comments directly, Gaethje made it clear that he hasn't seen any financial benefit from the new UFC deal. Despite claims that fighters would be paid more on these cards, Gaethje stated bluntly that he isn't making a single dollar more than he would have if the deal never existed. From his perspective, the narrative being pushed publicly doesn't match the reality fighters are living behind the scenes. Gaethje's comments add fuel to the ongoing debate around fighter compensation, raising serious questions about revenue distribution and whether new media deals truly benefit the athletes who generate the product. Michael Chandler has finally addressed Dana White's recent comments, shutting down the possibility of a long-anticipated fight between himself and Conor McGregor on the rumored White House UFC card. Appearing on the Ariel Helwani show, Chandler offered a calm but honest reaction, emphasizing patience and perspective amid ongoing uncertainty. When asked whether a fight with McGregor was still realistic, Chandler acknowledged that much of the conversation surrounding the matchup dates back several years. While Dana White appeared to dismiss the idea outright, Chandler made it clear that nothing is truly set in stone. According to him, no one actually knows what fights will be announced for the White House card, which he believes could end up being the biggest event the UFC has ever assembled, whether due to the scale of the venue, the magnitude of the matchups, or both. Chandler admitted that hearing the fight publicly shut down wasn't encouraging and certainly wasn't ideal. However, he also pointed out that throughout his career, he has heard many discouraging statements that later proved to be inaccurate or completely false. Because of that, he refuses to overreact or draw conclusions before official announcements are made. Rather than speculating, Chandler stressed his focus on controlling what he can control. He explained that his approach hasn't changed since the first day he entered the sport. Stay disciplined, remain patient, and continue preparing at the highest level. Whether or not he ends up fighting McGregor, or even appearing on the White House card, Chandler believes the only productive path forward is consistency and professionalism. When asked if Dana White's comments surprised him, Chandler said they did not. He noted that anyone who follows the sport understands that situations can change rapidly depending on timing, mood, or behind-the-scenes developments. This was Chandler's first public response since the comments surfaced, and he made it clear that he prefers responding thoughtfully rather than reacting emotionally. Until fights are officially announced and names are confirmed, Chandler says all he can do is stay ready, remain patient, and let the process unfold. Arman Tsarukyan has responded publicly to recent comments made by UFC President Dana White, who once again suggested that Tsarukyan needs to work his way back up the lightweight rankings before earning another title shot. Speaking candidly, Tsarukyan expressed confusion and frustration over the lack of clear communication from the UFC regarding what is expected of him. According to Tsarukyan, he genuinely does not know what more he is supposed to do to secure a championship opportunity. He explained that he has never had a direct conversation with Dana White about the situation and wishes he could speak with him personally to better understand the path forward. Tsarukyan emphasized that there has been no discussion or guidance provided about specific requirements or expectations. Tsarukyan revealed that the only meaningful communication he has had with the UFC came prior to his fight against Dan Hooker. At that time, he spoke with Hunter Campbell, who informed him that he would be facing Hooker in Qatar. Tsarukyan immediately accepted the matchup without hesitation, believing it was a major opportunity to move closer to a title shot. Following the fight, Tsarukyan said he was told that the bout was considered a #1 contender fight. However, he later learned through indirect sources that a headbutt incident may have played a role in preventing him from receiving the title opportunity. What frustrated him most was that this information was never communicated to him directly by the promotion. Tsarukyan made it clear that his biggest issue is not being denied a title shot, but rather the lack of transparency surrounding the decision. He stressed that he has always been willing to fight anyone the UFC puts in front of him and has consistently said yes to every opportunity offered. From his perspective, clearer communication would go a long way in resolving the uncertainty surrounding his future in the lightweight division. Umar Nurmagomedov has shared an interesting perspective on the current bantamweight title picture, suggesting that Sean O'Malley receiving the next championship opportunity could actually work in his favor. Rather than pushing back against the idea, Nurmagomedov believes the scenario could open up an even clearer path for him within the division. According to Nurmagomedov, if the UFC decides to book O'Malley in a title fight, it would likely lead to a separate high-profile matchup elsewhere in the division. He explained that if O'Malley is matched up with Petr Yan, there is a strong possibility that he himself would be booked in a rematch against Merab Dvalishvili. Nurmagomedov views that potential rematch as an opportunity to avenge his previous loss and strengthen his case for a title shot. When asked what he expects to happen if he defeats another former champion, Nurmagomedov admitted that he doesn't necessarily believe it will immediately earn him a title fight. While some fighters might expect a championship opportunity after such a win, he remains realistic about the politics of matchmaking and says he is prepared for whatever comes next. Nurmagomedov emphasized that his focus remains unchanged regardless of how many fights it takes to reach his ultimate goal. He made it clear that he is willing to fight as many times as necessary, even if that means waiting into 2026 to earn a title shot. For him, the timeline is less important than staying active and continuing to prove himself against the best in the division. Looking ahead, Nurmagomedov said he would welcome the opportunity to headline a major event, including a possible main event slot in Abu Dhabi during the summer. He mentioned potential opponents such as Song Yadong or Sean O'Malley, should those matchups become available. Nurmagomedov concluded by stating that if Merab Dvalishvili moves on to fight for the title next, it would only further improve his own position in the division, reinforcing his belief that patience and consistency will ultimately pay off. UFC President Dana White has confirmed that the promotion fully intends to rebook the highly anticipated showdown between Kayla Harrison and Amanda Nunes, following Harrison's withdrawal from their originally scheduled bout at UFC 324. The fight was postponed after Harrison was forced to undergo neck surgery, temporarily halting what many consider the most significant women's matchup in MMA history. Speaking in a recent interview with TMZ, White emphasized the importance of patience when it comes to a fight of this magnitude. He described Harrison versus Nunes as the greatest female fight ever and made it clear that this is not a matchup the UFC is willing to rush or compromise. According to White, replacing Harrison with another opponent was never a realistic option, as the fight's significance relies entirely on the two women facing each other at full health. White also praised Amanda Nunes for her professionalism throughout the process. He highlighted their long-standing relationship, noting that Nunes has been easy to work with since the beginning of her UFC career. White credited her flexibility, understanding, and willingness to wait for the right moment as key reasons why the UFC remains confident the bout will eventually take place. Providing an update on Harrison's condition, White confirmed that the surgery was successful and that her recovery is progressing well. He expressed optimism that Harrison will make a full recovery and be cleared to compete later this year. With both fighters expected to be ready, the UFC believes the matchup can still happen in 2026, preserving its status as a landmark event in women's MMA. The potential clash between the dominant Olympic judoka Kayla Harrison and the widely regarded greatest female fighter of all time, Amanda Nunes, has been viewed as a generational fight. Fans and analysts alike see it as a rare collision of elite skill sets, power, and championship pedigree. With White's confirmation, expectations remain high that once Harrison is fully healthy, the UFC will deliver the historic matchup fans have been waiting for. Alexander Volkanovski has opened up about the extreme difficulty of cutting weight to make the UFC's 145-pound featherweight limit, offering a rare look into the physical and mental toll the process takes on elite fighters. While fans often focus on what happens inside the octagon, Volkanovski made it clear that the battle begins long before fight night. Volkanovski explained that while fighting itself is obviously brutal, it is limited to a maximum of 25 minutes. The weight cut, on the other hand, stretches across an entire week and involves constant discomfort, discipline, and pain. He noted that many fighters say the fight is the easiest part, not because it lacks difficulty, but because it is brief compared to the prolonged suffering required to prepare for it. According to Volkanovski, the body gradually adapts to the process over time. Fighters learn how to manage pain, exhaustion, and dehydration more effectively with experience. However, he emphasized that adapting does not mean it becomes easy. Even after years at the top of the sport, the weight cut remains one of the most punishing aspects of his career. Volkanovski revealed that during fight week, he typically cuts between 7 and 8 kilograms in total. A significant portion of that weight is shed in the final hours before the weigh-in. On the night before, he usually drops around 5 kilograms through intense sweating alone. That means forcing nearly 5 liters of fluid out of his body in a matter of hours, a process he described as extremely taxing and dangerous if not handled correctly. Despite the brutality of the cut, Volkanovski understands it as part of the job at the elite level. He acknowledged that the sacrifices made during fight week are all in service of being fully prepared for those 25 minutes inside the cage. While he has become more efficient at managing the process, he made it clear that cutting to 145 pounds is never comfortable and remains one of the toughest challenges of competing at featherweight. Kamaru Usman believes the UFC should seriously consider booking a long-discussed showdown between Conor McGregor and Masvidal, despite UFC President Dana White recently dismissing the idea and labeling it unrealistic. Usman, along with former two-division champion Henry Cejudo, argues that the matchup makes sense as a comeback fight for both men given their current situations. Usman explained that while Dana White has pointed out that the idea may have made more sense several years ago, the reality is that the available options for McGregor are now limited. With Michael Chandler seemingly out of the picture, Usman believes the most logical alternatives are either a Nate Diaz rematch or a fight with Masvidal. However, he noted that Diaz already fought McGregor years ago, which makes Masvidal the fresher and more intriguing option. According to Usman, the timing actually works in favor of the matchup. McGregor has not competed in nearly 5 years, while Masvidal has been away from competition for approximately 3 years. From Usman's perspective, that shared inactivity levels the playing field and makes the fight a fair and exciting return for both athletes. He also pointed out that stylistically, the matchup makes sense and that both fighters are at similar stages in their careers. Usman emphasized that the rivalry and hype surrounding McGregor and Masvidal once carried massive momentum, and he believes revisiting that storyline now could reignite fan interest. He openly encouraged Dana White to reconsider, stating that the fight has all the elements needed to succeed. Henry Cejudo echoed those sentiments, saying he has no issues with the matchup and would enjoy seeing Masvidal receive another major opportunity. He added that if the McGregor fight does not materialize, a bout between Masvidal and Leon Edwards to settle their past issues would also be compelling. However, Cejudo agreed that McGregor versus Masvidal works well, especially at welterweight, where neither fighter would need to endure a difficult weight cut. While acknowledging that McGregor's name has been linked to multiple potential opponents recently, Usman concluded that the UFC should commit to a clear direction. In his view, McGregor versus Masvidal stands out as a clean, marketable, and sensible matchup that could deliver a successful return for both fighters. Khamzat Chimaev has firmly shut down speculation suggesting that Ilia Topuria could submit him, responding directly to a fan comment that quickly gained attention online. The exchange began after a social media edit featuring Topuria sparked debate, with one user claiming that the featherweight champion would be capable of choking out Chimaev in a hypothetical matchup. Chimaev did not hesitate to respond. Jumping into the comment section himself, he dismissed the idea outright and did so in characteristically blunt fashion. Chimaev mocked the suggestion, stating that even in Topuria's dreams, someone who is significantly smaller in both height and weight would not be able to submit him. He punctuated his response with laughing and crying emojis, making it clear that he found the claim more humorous than credible. The comment quickly circulated across MMA social media, with fans reacting to Chimaev's confidence and the clear size and strength disparity between the two fighters. While Topuria has built a reputation as an elite grappler with dangerous submission skills, Chimaev's response highlighted what many observers point to as the obvious difference in physicality between the two athletes. Chimaev has long been known for his dominance on the ground, particularly against larger opponents in the welterweight and middleweight divisions. His wrestling-heavy style, relentless pressure, and raw strength have made him one of the most feared grapplers in the UFC. From his perspective, comparing him to a much smaller fighter, regardless of technical skill, is unrealistic. Although the exchange was largely lighthearted, it underscores how frequently hypothetical cross-division matchups dominate MMA discussion online. Fans often speculate about fantasy fights without accounting for size, weight classes, and stylistic realities. Chimaev's reaction served as a reminder that while Topuria is one of the most dangerous fighters in his division, the gap between them is simply too large to ignore. As both fighters continue to build momentum in their respective weight classes, the brief online interaction added another viral moment to Chimaev's growing persona: confident, dismissive, and unapologetically self-assured.